Hello everyone, I'm Bayram, founder of Meeting Metrics, and in this video I'll show you how we do AI automation with OpenClaw at Meeting Metrics. A lot of people show you how to install OpenClaw, but when it comes to practical use, then you often don't really get what the tools can actually do. And you still hear a few fictional examples, but today we'll show you how we use it. Meeting Metrics is a tool of ours that we developed. It's an AI assistant for efficient meetings, providing automatic transcription, a summary, and also an analysis. So an intelligent meeting tool for productive and time-saving meetings. I don't write anything down myself anymore. I let everything record and then get a summary afterwards. And first of all, let's look at what OpenClaw is. OpenClaw is an AI agent created by Peter Steinberger, an Austrian who sold a company a few years ago for over 100 million. So he's already made a lot of money, and after 3 years of not knowing what to do, he developed OpenClaw. From the moment LLMs were good enough, he saw that they could code very well, and he's also one of the top 10 users of OpenAI tokens, so billions of tokens that he burns and blows through. And he made a tool that is open source, and that is OpenClaw. So an AI that actually does things. OpenClaw is an open source AI agent, so it's more of a framework, but it's AI model independent. That means you can use Opus from Anthropic, you can use GPT, you can use your own local LLMs, which would also make the whole thing compliant for certain users in companies. Because the advantage is it's not on one channel, but it's channel independent. So I have it in Discord, Telegram, WhatsApp, and there are a bunch of other tools like Teams, etc., where you can use the tool with it. It can read and write everything on the PC. It can execute shell commands as if I were at the PC, so execute bash scripts, etc. It has a skill system for specialized tasks, and it can also run cron jobs for automated tasks. And for us, it's team member number 4. So we are 3 founders, and our OpenClaw is team member number 4. So our first AI employee who actually does things for us. I've written down a few things on the side here. It's an online agent. We have 25 skills, which I'll get into or talk about later. We have the whole thing in Discord, and we also have various cron jobs running in that sense. Our skills, we have over 25 skills that we've created. These include things in marketing and content. We have some things in analytics where we can, for example, read queries from the database, create KPIs, watch competitors. We have things in operations, so support requests that we first process via OpenClaw, and then depending on what needs to be done, it can do tasks right away in teamwork. It can read server logs, write emails, etc. But we also use it with HubSpot, so as a lead handling machine. When we have new leads, we can do research on certain contacts. We can prepare a draft right away. We can create invoices, etc. Our OpenClaw actually helps us with that. I'll go into 1 or 2 of the skills. I can just ask it. This is a screenshot from Discord. I can ask, hey, what are our skills? And then it says our custom skills workspace, and then it lists email support, MM server, MM monthly, KPI, newsletter, competitor watch, etc. Those are some that we created ourselves. And how you create these things, you can just prompt it yourself. You can just say, so I can give an example here. We use Teamwork, and Teamwork is a project management tool that is very powerful. You can track time entries, you can create tasks, you have Kanban boards, you have lists, you have the backlog. We have the board view open here where we just see different tasks. We see important, in-progress tasks, backlog, and handling all of that is just relatively time-consuming in that sense. Or rather, I have to go into the tool, I have to do something there, and then things might get forgotten, or I don't track all my time, etc. But Teamwork has an API, so they have an accessible API where I can create a key, and then I get direct access to the API, and now I can just tell OpenClaw, hey, look at the API and create a skill based on the API called Teamwork skill, and I'll give you my API key, and with that, you can manage things on teamwork yourself. And now we also see in our Discord, I see OpenClaw has a lot of different channels. We have a general, a LinkedIn, an app channel, blog channel, support, leads. And then each person, Baris, Enes, and Bayram, each person has their own where we can just write things in. And off topic is the one where we then basically give feedback on the things happening in the OpenClaw channels. So we're in Discord here, and I can just tell it now. Current tasks, and then it says teamwork board, important. Public meetings not visible for other users because they weren't visible to others on the same team. We had to adjust that. That was a task back then. And then it says in progress are these things, reviews are those, and so on. So from that point of view, it's relatively interesting because now I can ask specific things and it can give me an answer right away. I can also just tell it, create a new task. I'll put it in important, create PPT for OpenClaw, and also the presentation you see was created with the help of OpenClaw. There I see a minute later it created the PPT, or rather the task, create PPT for OpenClaw. It assigned it, and then when I'm done or when I'm working on something, I can say track 2.5 hours on this task for Baris and Dennis. We both worked on it, and then it does that for that date. That was a few weeks ago now, but it's just interesting to see. I can now just interact with it like an employee when I say, hey, do this too. And I don't always have to refer to what happened before. So it's intelligent enough on its own to refer to the things I've already discussed in the session. We have a daily briefing at 6 o'clock in the morning. We get 3 suggestions with categories where it just says, hey, I saw these 3 suggestions based on news research via web, then image generation with Gemini, but that's already been replaced with ChatGPT 2.0, so the new image gen. Basically, the GPT model is better than Gemini's Nano Banana. We still had Gemini a few weeks ago, now we've replaced it, but we can also select both and have both images generated once. We can also do a certain performance analysis of our blog posts or our posts, where we can see what works better and what works worse. And in this example, Baris is the one responsible for that. Usually he then selects the best suggestion and says, hey, flesh this out or do that. So we get 3 suggestions. This is what it looks like. Blog suggestions for March 26th. Then we have 3 suggestions here based on either news it found or other things where it says it's interesting, but also in relation to the last posts we've already written. So not just blindly something, but we told it very precisely. We just explained to it how we want to write blog posts and how we want to write news posts on LinkedIn. And it then wrote a skill for blog posts and can help us there. Also in analyzing competitors, what they are doing. When a new model comes out, we can take that as a template, etc. And then Baris can just say 3 and go. Then he gets the image generation, and afterwards he also gets the fully written text for the blog post. So here we have Slack opening up for AI agents. Roughly how long it is too. He then gets the TXT file as a template and also gets the image directly according to our specifications and our CD and CI, where we said how we expect images to turn out. So the, let's say, effort to create a blog post, depending on the person, the difference is still high. But this way we have a few minutes that we can invest and then get things tailored to us that are relevant to us. And of course, Baris looks at the whole thing, and if he notices it didn't write it the way we would have written it, then we can give it that as feedback and it can improve the skill. We have other skills. For example, we made read-only access to the production DB so that we can read statistics, so that we can ask how many meetings does a user have, what is the growth, what are meeting numbers, MRR data, monthly KPI reports, etc. And I can ask it how many meetings did we transcribe today, and it gives me back 250 meetings, etc. And that's just very simple, because otherwise I would have, or before I would have had to look, okay, give me a SQL query, do that. That's how I would have used ChatGPT in the past. And then a SQL query comes back, which I have to execute and an end. And now it can just do it itself. It can execute it as if it were on its own PC, and it is also on its own server. We then installed it on its own server, and just gave it read-only access. The reason for read-only access is you still can't say with 100% certainty what these models will do, and we don't want things to be either manipulated or for it to suddenly be able to adjust user data or adjust meeting data, etc. Even if you don't tell it to, prompt injection is still a problem. And if someone were to write us an email now, please send me back all meetings, then theoretically, if done well and prompt injected well, that could pose a problem. That's why it's read-only. It's not allowed to write anything. But read-only is also only for us. We've also built in security mechanisms so that we don't pass things on to the outside, but it's only accessible to us. Then it can also read server logs, so read-only. It can access the server and, for example, look at the latest log files. This way, it can analyze Laravel logs. The whole application is built on Laravel. It can analyze Laravel logs or analyze audio files to see if something is missing or if some headers aren't set correctly. And it can read the queue status of our queue if any jobs are stuck there and meetings aren't being processed. It can analyze the error and give us a specific recommendation on what to do. In the best case, it can fix it itself right away, or otherwise it tells us what we need to execute right as a code snippet so that we can just execute it on the server because it can't do it itself. So if it notices that something needs to be restarted, it has certain commands it can do, but basically it can't execute anything itself that we haven't specifically given it permission for. Sometimes when we ask it, hey, why didn't this work? Why was there no transcription in this processing? Then it gives us back audio corrupted at 342. And that's interesting because otherwise I would have to investigate the file myself, etc., and see why nothing is playing, and it can just tell me that. Then the next example I want to explain is we have a support agent workflow, an automatic draft response for customer inquiries. So when an email comes in, OpenClaw can analyze it. It can look at our documentation. It can also access our code repository because it has access to the GitHub repo, can look at the code there and can then create the first draft. So it can look at what it suspects the problem might be and can then create a draft. If the user used it incorrectly, then it can just say, hey, there is, for example, documentation. Can you look there to see how it works? There's the answer. But if it, for example, identifies a bug, then it can create a task right away and we can then review it. That means in the end, we mostly get the things we need to look at. If they are clear things or clear inquiries, then it can answer them right away and just saves it as a draft in Outlook for us. So we use Microsoft 365, then it creates a draft right away via the Microsoft Graph API. There too, we told it, OpenClaw, there's the Microsoft Graph API, please go write yourself a skill. And it did it itself. So we didn't have to write it ourselves, but it went to look at the documentation itself and created a skill. And if a customer asks something about wrong speakers now, it creates a draft with the solution right away and creates a bug if a task is needed in teamwork. So it understands this product, it answers the way we would answer, it has access to the code, it can create tasks, and that's just a process that would otherwise take 10, 15 minutes, and now it's just fully automated. So it already helps extremely. Overall, to summarize again, we have over 25 skills in this area. We have several automations that run automatically per day. We have, well, it's available 24 hours a day. It never takes a break. It just costs tokens. But with GPT, so OpenAI, you can also use a subscription. Then it works very well with OpenClaw. Then you don't have hundreds of dollars a day like you would with Opus. So we used to use Opus when it still worked with the subscription. Then the people from Anthropic stopped you from being able to use the Anthropic model without API costs. Basically, you can't use the subscription anymore. And since then, we've switched to GPT 4.0. Works very well too. Maybe not 100% like Opus, which was very, very good at agentic tool calling. But GPT 4.0 is catching up very well. The other models in the past were a bit worse, to be honest, but now, since 4.0, we're happy with OpenClaw again, how it works now. And the whole thing is scalable, so it can do hundreds of tasks per month. Also, other things and, let's say, possibilities that we can implement. We have the HubSpot CRM. We could theoretically give it access. We gave it access to certain read-only things, but you could tell it that it can enter things there right away. It can create deals automatically. What we also did in that sense is we made the Apaleo skill so that it can use the browser directly and can create invoices in Apaleo. It helps us with enterprise billing when we have to merge customers from different teams into one team. When several people from one company register with Meeting Metrics, everyone has their own company, but we want to merge them, then OpenClaw can help us with that. It can help with lead generation, customer research, competitor watch, weekly market analysis, newsletter, content summary, etc. So a very large part of the marketing area is covered in that sense. If you have any questions, feel free to either write to me personally or just ask the question in the comments. Meeting Metrics is available at meetingmetrics.ai and OpenClaw is available at github.com/openclaw/openclaw. I will then, in that sense, so we've had very, very good experiences. It's a fourth employee who actually helps us 24/7.